Alright, I have this mower. It is a Brute by Briggs Stratton, the 675 series. She was saying that it just won't start. Sometimes it's hard to pull and it's making a funny noise now. So, you know, I have my suspicions on what's going on, but let's take a look at it. So the funny noise, I'm going to pull Well, the funny noise, it was coming from the blade. See how, dangerously loose that was. Take a look at that blade. It was just rattling around. You see some deformations here and here where the thing, and here too. You can see where it's just been battered around with this blade, and you can see it's just really chipped up. Blade's in pretty bad shape. I'm going to make sure it's straight, see if I can, sharpen that up a bit, get rid of a bunch of these notches. But it's pretty obvious that she's hit something big time with this thing, and then with it just flaying around, luckily it didn't come off on her, but it did some damage on the deck. So my suspicions are, given that she hit something pretty hard, the blade's loose, it's kind of hard to pull when you're trying to crank it and you just won't start. I would almost bet whenever she ran over the rock or log, whatever, that it's probably the flywheel key. So let's take this thing apart and take a look at that key. I'll bet it's broken. So I'm going to go ahead and just take this blade off. And while it's off, of course, inspect your adapter, make sure it's not cracked, especially after it was doing so much damage under there. But it looks fine. So we'll service the blade later. But let's go ahead and start taking the covers apart and get at that flywheel. So we'll take the covers off. Take the housing off here, and it's usually there's 3 bolts up here on top. I don't know if you can see that very well. Let's get that started. Let me get a better angle for you. So hopefully that's a little better. And as you can see, there's another bolt down here. So this is the housing with the gas tank on it and everything. 3 bolts on the top. There's another one down here, but I'm not going to take it all the way off, so I can pivot it back and forth this way. If I need to take it off, I'll go ahead and take it off, and we can set it aside without having to take the fuel line off. But I'll continue on here. This is take off the bolt for the dipstick here. Get this out of the way. And instead of pulling it all out at first, I just kind of lift it up, swing it over, and it's out of the way. Great. Alright, let's take this housing off. Usually 2 bolts in the front, here and here, and then there's 2 in the rear, here and here. Sometimes they're the same size, but it looks like this one, the front has the longer bolts. Just keep track of what you're taking off. Set these in the front. Let's get these 2 in the rear off. Dropping screws. There we go. There we go. Set that aside so you can see we have clear access to the flywheel. Like I said, if it's not enough, room for you, just go ahead and take that bolt off, and the rest of the stuff will drop over. But okay, let's get this flywheel off. This is I believe it's a 15/16 socket. Yep. And you're gonna have to have something to brace this flywheel. I wouldn't recommend any pry bar or anything on these fins. You don't want to snap those off. It is just aluminum, so I've got the rubber wrench or whatever, and instead of going, this one is small, right? It doesn't fit around the whole deal. There are some out there that you can get that, yeah, they wrap around the whole thing. But with this one, I've had good luck just halfway through. And then there you go, being able to hold it like this while I crank on the nut. So let's get this off. There it goes. And bingo. Yeah, this thing's even loose. Kind of surprised. But, yep, there's half the key right there. Let's get that sucker off. So there you go. It's supposed to be one piece, so the key sheared, and you can see the misalignment. Well, you can't see from that angle, but it's obvious when you have that on there and the flywheel is let's see if I can get this on there. And when you look down on it, you can see the keys weren't, I mean the slots were way off. So what that does, it retards your ignition timing. So sometimes they'll start if it's not too bad. Sometimes they'll start but run rough. If it's really bad, it won't start at all. And when you're pulling it, it'll backfire on you and yank the cord out of your hand. So you got to watch out. It can be very painful. But those are usually the symptoms. So once I get this key back on, then we'll go ahead and check. Of course, we'll check for spark here on the magneto. Hopefully that's not damaged. But it looks like the sole problem so far is definitely that split key. So let's get the replacement. Alright, so we got the new key. Let's slide the flywheel on. You'll need to depress your safety switch here, and that releases your little flywheel brake on the side so you can line it up. So let's line this up. We can drop this new key in. And there we go. Pops right in there. Let's get everything put back together. It's pretty snug. I believe the spec on this torque it down to 50 foot-pounds, 45 to 50. Alright, let's get our housing back on here. Bolt these back on. My dog's wanting to play this morning. There you go. You ready? One thing I did notice while I was taking all this off, it looked like the little spring on your choke had popped off. Luckily I didn't lose it. So let's get that inserted. There we go. Through that one. There we go. Okay, that's tightened on. Let's get the fuel tank back on. Make sure your hose is still on good. Oh, before we do that, let's get our dipstick lined back up. And it's a good idea if it's really dirty down here, because this thing will really pops right off, right? But before you pop it off, clean it up pretty damn good. You don't want any dirt to fall down in your crankcase there. So let's get this on. Now let's get this over. And you don't want to tighten them too far down, because after all, they are plastic. So you don't want to crack the plastic off. And a lot of the stuff in here, you don't want to torque it down too much because it's aluminum. You don't want to strip anything down. So that's on there. Let's get our cover back on.
Jezebel. Come here, asshole.
What you doing, Gertie?
Jezebel, come here. Love me.
Go,
Jezebel,
go.
come on. Oh, no, don't bring me your log thing. Come on. I don't, leave it. I'm not in the door frames. Come on.
Okay. Well, everything's on. Let's make sure it's got gas. It's got gas. And I saw that it had oil when I took the dipstick off. Yep. And let's get the spark plug back on. And let's try to give it a crank. Alright, so we got it out in the yard. Let's see if it'll crank over. Spark plug's connected. This one doesn't have the bulb, the primer bulb. Automatic choke. Let's see if it'll start. Huh, well, what do you know, that was a first pull, and an easy pull at that. I didn't yank on it at all, but so that was definitely the problem. Just the little key on the flywheel. So the symptoms are, if you see it, if sometimes when you're pulling the mower, if it's trying to backfire or yank you back in, if it's really hard to start, sometimes not start at all. And if you know you've hit something, you know, a big rock or a log or whatever, then the chances are, I'd check that key on the flywheel, so that'll just shear right off. And it's an easy fix, but it's a good, I guess it's a good safety factor. If that key wasn't there, if it was, that leaves a breaking point. Without the key, if it was just a solid deal, then you run the chance of warping your drive axle or something major. So if you have those symptoms, just check the flywheel key. So be sure to subscribe to the DIY Tool channel and look for more videos on small engine maintenance and repair.